I'm Jenni Carlson here with Barry Tramel. We're in Norman, where today Bob Stoops held his end-of-season press conference. But, Barry, this was really about staff changes. And, obviously, Jay Norvell's dismissal was known over the weekend. We found out early Monday before the press conference that Josh Heupel had also been let go. Changes are coming for the Oklahoma offense.
Yeah, and, this was a case of something had to be done. I mean, when you have a disappointing season like this, 8-5, when you start out in the top 4 in the country, you face a massive fundraising campaign that you need to sort of jumpstart the fan base. Something had to be done. I don't think Bob Stoops is going to fire his brother, the defensive coordinator, so you look to the offense. And the fall guy was Josh Heupel and Jay Norvell. And so the Sooners forge ahead with a new offensive identity. We'll find out in a couple of weeks what that is. But same defense, and frankly, the defense was not as good as the offense this year. So to me, this sort of puts the onus on Mike Stoops and that defense in 2015.
We also found out that Jerry Montgomery, the recently hired defensive line coach, is now going to be co-defensive coordinator. Bob Stoops liking what he brings to the table, so maybe some more defensive ideas in there. It seemed like the defensive switch, stylistically, scheme-wise, was the right move, but clearly lots of issues in the secondary this year as the season went on. Just not where they needed to be with the fundamentals, really. There was problems there, but I think that they're going to look and say, well, it wasn't too long ago we were playing good defense. We're going to try to get back to that, forge ahead with a lot of guys returning. But obviously offensively, it sounds like Bob Stoops has some guys in mind, a style in mind. He didn't cop to any of that, but you got to think he's looking at somebody that's going to throw it around a bunch, as he made that obvious. He wants to throw the ball. Yeah,
he's been telling us that for several years, even as Oklahoma goes to a more mobile quarterback. Is the passing game is still priority for a quarterback. He wants somebody that can throw the ball, and we saw this year and part of last year really that this offense is not very good when they have trouble throwing. And down the stretch, the Sooners couldn't throw, particularly after Trevor Knight went out. But even with Knight, sometimes mistakes, poor decisions, throwing the ball to the other team. I think the passing game will become a priority again. We'll know a lot more about this offense when Bob makes his selection known.
Yeah, and he didn't give any sort of timetable, but he did acknowledge the fact that they get back on the recruiting trail in about 10 days' time, and he said that that's a long time in hiring. So it sounds like that I wouldn't be surprised if they had somebody already lined up by the time they go back out on the 15th. So don't be surprised if in the next week or so we find out some details on that. Lastly, Barry, what sort of tone does this set moving forward? About 40 minutes, Bob Stoops met with the media. Really, even from the get-go, it seemed like a different feel than we'd heard from Bob throughout the season. Very defiant throughout the year he was, but almost immediately came out and talked about disappointment and just not feeling good about the way the season went.
I think Bob got the message that he needs to let the fans know he feels their pain. He feels the same page. He feels their pain. It's not a question of keep going back to the past and looking at saying, you know what, yeah, we went 8-5, but look what we've done before that. That's really not what fans want to hear after a year like that. And I believe Stoops when he talks about how competitive he still is after 16 years, but he hasn't always imparted that very well. And I think it's a change in delivery is what we saw today, is that he wants people to know, you know what, I'm still the same competitive rascal I always was. I don't like this any more than you do. In fact, I hate it even worse. We're going to do something about it. So I think it was a change in message, and I think someone delivered that to Stoops that says, hey, we need to change the message, and I think that was done today.
Yeah, lastly, I think the message was different, but also the actions. Bob Stoops, granted, he did not fire his brother, did say that if it came to it, he would make a change, would oust Mike Stoops if that was something he felt like needed to be done. But the firings he did were his only national championship quarterback, a guy who's been around for a long time, and is also the brother of David Boren's daughter-in-law. Josh Heupel's sister is married to David Boren's son, so got some strong connections to the university. Also firing Jay Norvell, a former college teammate, so a guy he has a long history with there too. Not easy decisions, so not only the tone and the message, but what he did, I think it says, hey, he's ready to get going and keep fighting. Hey, be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.